Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson, owner of the Vine Wine Club. Welcome back to this spirited literary conversation. This is the show where we introduce you to your new favorite author and we pair the work with wine or a cocktail. So tonight we have one of our favorite guests is back with us tonight. She was with us maybe about 6 months ago with her book Veil. And tonight we're going to talk about FAULTLINE. But before we do, I'm talking to the authors out there, or aspiring authors. If you would like to be on this show, we'd love to have you. Hit us up at info@groseprod.com and we'll give you that information again at the end of the show. So if you miss it, just stand by, you'll get it again. So at this time, I want to bring to you Miss Mia Michele.
Hey, Benita.
Hey, Mia, welcome back.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I see you've been busy.
It's been crazy, very crazy.
And as promised, you came back and you treated us to another great conversation. So today we're going to talk about FAULTLINE.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Me too. So I don't know if I told you when you were here last time we talked about Veil that I love mafia type movies like Godfather and Scarface and Goodfellas, and this was kind of all of them, and it added a whole nother layer into it with the love angle.
Oh, I love them.
So tell us about this idea. I mean, how did this fall into your spirit, into your head?
So this was an odd one. It's been in the work in progress pile since 2012.
Okay.
And it was just sitting there waiting, and I couldn't write it. It just nothing came out in my head for it. And then I was working on something else, needed a break, and I literally said to myself, like, is there anybody else up there talking? Like anybody else, anybody at this point. And Giovanni started talking, and it wrote itself in about 3 months, which for contrast, Veil was 3 years.
Really? Wow. So I love the flow. I love the flow. And what I liked a lot about this book, I was surprised that with the split point of view. Like in the beginning, we saw it from this angle. And so it kind of had us wondering a little bit what Giovanni was thinking, and then towards, later in the book, you kind of told us what was going on that we didn't see in the beginning. So I did like that. So let's talk about these characters. So Giovanni Maserati is one of the main characters in the book, and his love interest, whatever she is, Alessandra. Mm-hmm. Let's say that correctly. And, we call her Lexi throughout the book as well. So how were they born, I should say? Where did Lexi come from?
So, I'm sorry, I think we're getting some feedback. Let me see if I can adjust this a little. Is that better?
I'm looking at the notes. It sounded better to me.
Okay, I'm not hearing any feedback, so I'm hoping it's better.
Yeah, it's good to me.
Giovanni was born first, I think, but probably for my own love of gangsters and that bad boy personality. But I wanted to be an FBI agent when I was a kid. I was in love with Bond films and things like that. And so I think the idea of a female FBI agent was always in my head for a main character. Mm-hmm. And I became a librarian. So this idea of being able to pair the two of them kind of became perfect for Lexi's character. And then I thought, what would it take to make the average person go up against a gangster? And to me, the only thing I could come up with was I would need a really invested reason to put everything on the line.
Yeah.
And it's the loss of her dad and holding Giovanni responsible for that.
Absolutely. Because, it was kind of, just reading it, well, I picture her as being like a small woman. And like when you talk about her experience going through the FBI Academy, she wasn't the strongest candidate, in any of the exams that they go through, psychological. She wasn't the best shooter. And she's, like you say, she did become a librarian. So, and then she's putting herself in this very dangerous world where they said that anybody who they had put in there to kind of infiltrate, they figured them out in 30 days, so how would, this girl who barely made it through the academy, who's now a librarian, survive?
Right.
And so it also weaved in a whole lot of, kind of sexy themes. He ran a club. It seems like an adult type of club that he ran. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, he runs a couple of different really inappropriate businesses where he is constantly, putting himself out there for the press to see all sorts of terrible aspects about him. He's also a good guy too.
He is. I mean, I can understand why she kind of fell in love with him, because he was charming, mysterious, certainly, and from what you described in the book, quite handsome, very wealthy. He loved all of the finer things in life.
Yeah, he checks all the boxes.
He does. So then you take her to meet the family. And so this family was like everything that we would imagine or what we have seen on TV that Italian families are.
They are. I will confess that I built some of the family off of, like my mother-in-law is very much, she reminds me a lot of his mom.
Yeah, they were very loving and, everybody was very warm and just very excited, first of all, that he brought a woman. So it seemed like this was the first time that he actually brought a woman home.
Yeah, Giovanni dates a lot, but apparently doesn't really introduce them to his family.
Yeah, because did he say like most women don't last, long enough to get to go to the family? So what would you think, like, all right, let's take this, like the way that he was in the book. He made plans and there was no saying no, like when he made the plan for her to go with him to Europe, or they went to Italy, right? I think specifically Italy. He had already like called her job and gave them money so they could pay for her replacement for 2 weeks, so they could come. I mean, that seemed like, it seems romantic, but it also seems scary. And so I did like that you wove in some kind of mysteriousness and some, you mixed in that danger really well.
Yeah, I think Giovanni is the perfect alpha male. Like he doesn't take no for an answer. He's used to getting his way. And he doesn't understand. Like she even says, "Does no one ever say no to you?" And he says, "They know better."
Right. But when she said no to him in the beginning, that's kind of what attracted him to her, because nobody ever said no.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to mess with my microphone a little bit.
I get it. So while you're fixing that, we're going to go ahead and bring in our wine expert, and then maybe we'll get all of that worked out after we get some wine. So today it is my pleasure to introduce my wine sister, Sakari Bowman of the Color of Wine podcast. Hey, Sakari.
Hi, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in forever.
Years.
Yes.
We got to fix that when all of this pandemic stuff is done.
Yes, we do have to fix that. That's top of the list.
Yeah. So before we get into wine, tell our viewers about the Color of Wine podcast.
So I started the Color of Wine podcast back in 2017 with my brother, Shamari Bowman, who is my producer extraordinaire. And what the podcast does is it puts the focus on people of color in the wine industry. So I am happy to say that Benita was a guest on our first season of The Color of Wine back in 2017. So it's, it's been a journey, and the biggest thing that's really been happening lately is that our podcast is now archived at UC Davis.
Congratulations. That is a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's huge. We have thought about our podcast as kind of the oral history of people of color in the wine industry. We have over 80 episodes that we've done for the podcast over the past couple of years. And we're just super excited to have that and have it really sitting somewhere in perpetuity so that everyone can have a chance to go back and take a listen to it. And for research, for students, for writers, for people that are just curious about it, it is there at UC Davis, and it's also on Apple Podcasts. You can get every episode that we've ever done.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. And it's an awesome show. You have some of the top folks in wine and spirits on your show. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So what are we drinking tonight?
So this is the funny thing. So hey, Mia, it's so nice to meet you virtually.
Nice to meet you.
Mia and we were chatting by email, and Mia mentioned that she likes Nebbiolo, which is a variety that is found in Italy, in the Piedmont region of Italy. And it pairs so nicely with her book. And I'll kind of break all that down. But before we even go there, the Piedmont region of Italy is closest to the Alps. So it is a very cold climate. It's also rolling hills and very mountainous. So it's pretty difficult to grow grapes there. But the Nebbiolo grape, which is a thick-skinned black grape, grows very well in that region of Italy. And it produces some of the most amazing wines that you will ever taste. And we chose, Mia chose Nebbiolo, and I love that she chose the varietal. And when I actually went to purchase a bottle, I wanted something that was not traditional Barolo, right? So Nebbiolo is used to make Barolo. Traditionally, Barolo is very, very tannic. So tannin, I think about it like if you put a Lipton tea bag on your tongue, right? That was wet, and what that would make your mouth feel like, that's tannin. And green tea, all teas have it. Your green teas, your black teas, your white teas have a little less of it, but teas have that tannin. So when I think about tannic wines, that's how I think about it on my palate. So Barolo, which is made from the Nebbiolo grape, is very tannic. It's a very strong, forceful wine. So I wanted something, because of the love aspect of Mia's book, I wanted something that was a little softer, that had some more fruit. Nebbiolo is known to be they produce very earthy wines. Fruit not so ripe, maybe fruits that are a little just before ripeness. And when you go south in Piedmont, the weather is a little warmer. So you're going to get a little more fruit out of the wines that are produced from the Nebbiolo grape. So this particular wine that I chose is from the Langhe region in Piedmont. And the producer is Giacomo Borgogna. And they have been making wines at Borgogna since 1848. So they kind of know what they're doing. And this wine is absolutely delicious. The price point on it here in Atlanta, which is where I am, was around $25, which is really great for a Nebbiolo. And it's a 2016, so it has a couple of years on it. Typically, when Nebbiolo is used to make Barolo and Barbaresco, they want it to age. So back in the day, when they were making Barolo from this grape, they did not release bottles for 25 to 30 years, because that's how long they were thinking that wine needed to age to soften a bit so that it could become more approachable. So when you buy Nebbiolo and you buy it from the Langhe region, it's going to have a little softer tannin, and it's going to have more fruit. And that's why I thought it would be so fantastic with Mia's book, because there's some strength in that Nebbiolo, right? But there's also a softness to this particular bottle. So, and pair it with meats. If you're a carnivore, Or
Yes.
if you are a carnivore, pair it with meats that have fat, right? So I would not pair this with like a filet mignon because it doesn't have any fat. If you want to pair it with a steak, I'd pair it with a sirloin, right? Something that's got some fat to it. I would pair it with lamb. I would pair it with pork. It's delicious with pork belly if that's your thing. If you eat pork, and if you want to do a pasta, do something that has some richness to it because these wines need richness because of those tannins. It needs some richness to help kind of balance everything out. If you're going to do something with a red sauce, be really careful with the tomatoes because they're so acidic. You want to really cook them down, bring out the sweetness. You want to add some cheese, lots of olive oil, some, fattier meat, like a ground sirloin to that bolognese sauce and have that with some pasta. And it's absolutely delicious.
Now that you got us all hungry, you got us starving over here.
My mouth is watering.
I know, just stop. We had enough. I'm about to just have popcorn, and now you talking lamb and pork belly and all this.
I know. Oh, and if you like truffles, white truffles, black truffles, it's delicious. That's where white truffles are. They're famous in the Piedmont region of Italy for white truffles. They're super expensive, but if you can get your hands on some, put that on some pasta, that earthiness with this wine would be delicious.
Thank you, Sakari. You're so awesome. So how can tell our viewers how they can listen to Color of Wines?
So you can listen to it through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. And you can also go to our website, loveandvines.com/The Color of Wine. And that's where we have all of our episodes that we've ever done. You can get the whole library, including Benita's episode from 2017. But yeah,
I think we had two. We talked so long. I think it was just like a 2-part. It was fun. I remember I pulled over. I was headed to Charlottesville and I pulled over on 64 because I didn't want to go through a dead zone and lose you.
Right. Yeah. And it's, we have so many guests that have done that where they've been in the car. We had one guest that was actually in the vineyard when we were talking, and he was, standing at the top of a hill because that was the best cell reception at the vineyard. And that was David Brown of Brown Estates. And, so he's standing there on the top of this hill in the vineyards, and we're talking about his family and wine and what all that means, not only to them, but also to the community. And it was pretty spectacular. So yeah, we've had folks in all kinds of different places, in back alleys from the store that they work at. I mean, it's been crazy.
It's nothing like a back alley chat. But it's been great. I know you're busy, and I don't know if you want to hang out with us. I know you got a lot going on, but you're welcome to hang out and with me and Mia as we continue to talk about FAULTLINE.
I would love to.
All right, great. So Mia, now she's taking us to Tuscany, where we're in Italy, and that's where Giovanni is from. And so part of the book, they travel back over there. So give us a little bit. Have you been there? Because you, in your book, you were very descriptive and you took us there.
Oh, I'm so glad. I have not been there. I would love to go there, but I haven't. But he's from Sicily. So he was born in Palermo, which is kind of the northern part of the island. He owns a home in Agrigento, which is a southern, south central part. And then they end up traveling to Catania, which is more of the eastern side of the island.
So when he went there, what was his role? Tell our viewers, what was his role when he was over in Italy?
So very similar to how I think here we view mafiosos as having kind of their own territories. He has a territory there. So his home territory is Palermo because that's his father's territory. But then during a mob war, he actually took Agrigento. So that's his territory. And he's there to kind of take care of his people. So he sees himself very much almost like a landowner from the Middle Ages, where these are his folks and he's going to make sure that life goes well for them. So it's not this idea that he is using his power in a corrupt way. He legitimately believes that he is there to kind of serve the people. This is what he was taught as a younger man, was that, you know, the type of power he's supposed to have comes from being given to him by the people, that he doesn't see himself as, you know, coming in to take it from them. He's the knight in shining armor. And this actually plays a lot into how he views himself and how he separates himself from the criminals that he thinks the FBI is actually pursuing. He does not see himself as a criminal. You know, he sees that he does what has to be done so that other people can have a good life.
And I think they perceived him as that too. They kind of looked at him, you know, he takes care of us. And, you know, when I think one of the people asked him or asked Lexi about marrying him, and was kind of like, of course you will. You know, why wouldn't you? He's such a great guy. So
Right.
exactly, that's how they saw him too. So let's talk about you and the writing, because you said you wrote this book in 3 months. This is a lot of book. I mean, I think this is close to 800 pages. And, you know,
I actually just got them in. This thing's a monster.
it's a lot. And so, you know, when do you have time to write? And I know you have, you know, things going on at home. You're a mother, you're a wife. When do you have time to write?
So this one was really, I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would write until 9. And it was every day, 5 to 9. And then after dinner, once I'd finished cleaning up, I would come back and write more. But it was crazy. The words just came out. And I want to say we were around like 220,000 words when I thought I was finished. And I wrote the end and I was sure I was done. And then I sat down to read through it. And all of a sudden, all these scenes came. So his flashback was not in the original copy. He goes straight to New York and there's no flashback at all. And then,
but that's such a powerful part of the book. Because one of the things I was wondering in the beginning, and this is, you know, as I said, I study these shows. I've seen The Godfather like double digits, you know, like high double digits. So, you know, when they said he picks out people so early, I was like, how did he not know, you know, in the beginning? Why did he not research her? And so when you go back to looking at it from his point of view, you do kind of see, you know, he wasn't slipping. You know, he's known a lot from the beginning.
Yeah, he's really the reason that it was written that way. And I struggle with, would it have been better to be a traditional book where, I mean, if you look at the books, see if I can get through here. This is all told in her perspective. So all of that is just her. And, you know, she is kind of perceived, I think, as the star of the book if you look at the cover, because it's a woman standing in front of stairs and a bookcase. So you get all of her thoughts, how she perceives him, what she's feeling, why she's doing all of this. And you get none of his. You only get what she's thinking that he thinks, or the way that she's perceiving his behaviors. And I think that to tell it in that typical back and forth where you knew exactly what he was thinking, when he knows what it is he knows, you would miss out on not just the thrill of the climax and seeing how it's going to fall into place, but also with understanding why it is he has to be who he is and why it is he does the things that he does. Every single beta reader who read it up through chapter 17, which is where his perspective starts, hated his guts. I still have people who are like, I can't stand him. The only person who was Team Giovanni from the start was my husband. He read it as it was being written. He never once faltered except at chapter 16. He told me how much he hated him only then. And then immediately in 17 was back on his side.
Yeah, I didn't hate him. I mean, I wanted things to be better, but I never hated him. I think
it's
I understood
hard because you just fall in love with him. I'll admit he's my book boyfriend.
Yeah, he was good to her. I mean, he had his things and his weird things that turned him on. Like he loved her smart mouth, and God knows her mouth was smart. He loved that, and it got her in trouble. But it was also passion. It drove that passion that they had between them, that kind of back and forth, all those arguments and stuff.
I think what's hard for Giovanni is he became everything he didn't want to be, because he does see himself with this level of honor and this level of being able to uncover people's deception. as the book hits that apex, he has to acknowledge that he's just as much the villain as the person he has, pegged as the villain of the story. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. And I think that it's something that until the end, he doesn't really have to contend with. So it's really tough, I think, to see character-driven stories because you have to watch them break. And the only way that a character really breaks and grows is when they understand themselves and their own faults. And unfortunately, Giovanni's fall is pretty hard in that way. And everyone's told him, his parents have told him, his friends have told him, he knows, even in his own internal dialogue, he knows what he's doing is wrong in places, and he just doesn't stop because this is what has to be done. And he'll pay the price because he's the one who has to make sure it gets done. And I think that's just a really hard place to be in.
I was going to ask you, and you kind of just explained it. Where did the title Fault Line come from?
So I had no title. The entire 3 months, no title. It was saved as Untitled Mob Romance because I did not have a title for it. And I was listening to the CD World on Fire by The Riggs, which is a band out of LA. And one of the songs on there is called Fault Line. And one day that started playing as I was working on the flashback scene. And it just, the words of that song hit me. And there's a scene that in that right before the flashback where his dad says, the two of you are standing on a fault line. And if you're not careful, basically like the whole world's going to fall apart. And my one daughter's really big into meteorology. And I actually asked her, I'm like, explain to me how severe is a fault line? Like, how bad is it? And she said to me, well, you wouldn't want to stand on it. And I'm like, okay, well, then that's where the title's going to be. It's because the two of them it's this shift where the slightest change can either create a world or it can ultimately destroy it. And it fit so perfectly their stories because they both are these characters that are stunted. And Giovanni has learned to cope by becoming the mafioso that we all expect. He's the guy who knows what everybody is thinking. He's the one who's in control. Lexi coped with her, world falling apart by just stopping. She's very immature. She doesn't think things through. It's this, I want it, therefore I'm going to do it. And oh God, this happened. And maybe I should have thought about that before I got myself into this. But she doesn't learn that going through.
Right. She thought from behind, after something happened, is like, oh boy, how am I going to, what happens next? So I'm going to fix this. So, yeah.
So I think they're interesting because they're both in this spot where they've got to sink or swim. But it's time. I mean, he's 38 years old. She's 32. Like you got to figure your lives out at this point and see what's going to happen. But yeah, I thought Fault Line really fit them well because you're standing on this point that's either going to destroy you both or it's going to create something far more stable than either of you were apart.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, how will we talk about the book without giving it the story away? I was real concerned. So I think we did a good job without giving away everything in the book. It's a whole lot of book. It's very intriguing. It keeps you engaged. I read it, I was on a plane this weekend. And so I did a lot of the reading on the plane. And so it really kept you engaged and it kept me awake on the plane. So has the book come out yet?
It did. It released last weekend, and it was a very busy weekend. I was surprised by how well it was received. I didn't think that we'd done as much with COVID and everything, as much pre-pub work, but it has done well in the week that it's been out. So it's been very exciting.
Well, I'm definitely encouraging our viewers to get it. It's a great book. And you know what I told you the last time we were on the show, I need to see these things on the screen. I'm a visual. So make it happen. So how can folks get your book, Mia?
Well, you can pick it up at your local booksellers, or you can pop on over to www.miamichele.com and you can get an autographed paperback. Right now, we're running a 40% off sale. So you can pick one up there. Or if you are more of the electronic reader, you can click on a link and it'll show you how to download those.
Well, I'm definitely going to order mine tonight because I want the autographed copy. So I want to thank you again for being on our show. I know we'll see you again because I'm sure you're working on something very exciting right now. Thank you, Sakari. Great to see you again. And I know you're going to be back too. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in to Books and Bottles. Again, authors out there, if you'd like to be on our show, hit us up at info@groseprod.com. I'm your host, Benita Johnson, owner of the Vine Wine Club. See you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.